Now, in this video, we are essentially covering how the DIKW framework applies to the job search. And again, this framework starts from the bottom and works its way up to the top. So, in that data stage where you're gathering data, that data that you're going to be working with, that's where you get from all contacts and data points so that you could learn and adjust your process. These are people that you talk to, mentors, tutors, um, job descriptions, events that you go to, all the things that make up what you know or come to understand later about your job search and your approach, or even the market, quite honestly. So, in the information stage, because we're actually starting to identify patterns and give a little more context to the data that we've been gathering, we start to see like what is going on. And I would say, like, if things happen in threes, then that starts to be a pattern or a trend. Two, it's too easy to say, oh, that is a coincidence. But here, three or more instances where you start to see patterns emerge, that is where you could be looking at the job listings, or it could be interview framework, feedback, how you transform that raw data or feedback that you've been getting into insights. So, for example, I would say that you're stalled in the application stage if all of your feedback is saying we're going with other candidates because they're more qualified, or you're stuck in a certain interview stage because on more than at least three occasions, you've gotten stuck on that stage, you've not progressed, and also there's some similar feedback. That's when you know that is worth digging into to see what you can address about it. So there are patterns emerging or trends that you can identify. Now, when we get to applying that and looking at how we use that knowledge, that information into knowledge, and define our decisions and what do we change rather than always changing it at every stage, then what we're doing is we're understanding what needs to happen. So that is why job seekers do need to tailor their applications for the different job descriptions. Now, with the data that you start to collect and the patterns that you recognize in different job descriptions, especially if you have one clear target or one industry niche, it is a lot easier to have everything that you need already in the main part of your application. So you're just refining it or tweaking your application for specific needs of a company versus that role, that industry, or that career path. So that is how the data information knowledge piece works together. When you're in the wisdom stage, this is where you really get into the heart of debugging your job search. Because for me, you're not just looking at all the data that you've gathered every month, and I do recommend a regular cadence of examining and stopping to look at the data and then recognizing patterns versus trying to do it all at once. So your head's down doing your application, seeing, putting those together. And then at the end of every 4 to 6 weeks, you then look at your trends, and that's where you can identify that you have been stalling out at one part of the job search and what you need to do about it. So applying this means that you notice that there's a shift in the tools or technologies, what they're calling it, what they're asking for, what the job titles seem to be. And as you get to understand that, then you tailor your presentation when you pitch people, when you go to events, when you apply. So then you're more likely to get to that following stage. Resumes get you interviews, are supposed to. So if they're not, that's what you look at. And if you apply this to interviews, then it's each stage, the recruiter stage, hiring manager stage. You apply all that you learn. And if you sweetly progress through each stage without a problem, I say you make a video, post a comment, post your video in the chat. That will be fun to see how expertly you did your process. Follow me for more.